What I'd like to do now is tell you about some of the debug workflows that are available to you from inside of Creative Suite Extension Builder. What I'm going to do now is, from the Creative Suite Extension Builder perspective, go right ahead and import one of the basic samples that it comes with. Now, if I click on Choose a Project, I can run as an Adobe InDesign extension. That would simply launch InDesign with extension loaded. I can debug as. Again, that would launch InDesign, but the Flash bugger would be launched at the same time, and it would attempt to connect to the Swift running inside of InDesign. There's also a third option, Attach As, which requires the host application to be started. And that's similar to if you're using a traditional IDE such as Microsoft Visual Studio to debug a C++ program. And you can either debug as, where you start the application on a control debugger from the outset, or you attach to an existing application that's running. And this works in exactly the same way. Let's go ahead and debug our Hello InDesign extension as an Adobe InDesign extension. First of all, I check that it's not running in the background. And let's go ahead and run it. Debug as Adobe InDesign. What that should do is load up fire up InDesign with extension loaded. And with any luck, we'll see, once we get rid of the start screen, you can see in the background in the Flash Builder environment there's trace appearing in the console, which means that the Flash debugger has successfully connected to the Swift extensions. Hello InDesign. What I'm going to do is actually go back into my code here and set a breakpoint at the point where the code will execute when we click on that Create button in the panel. So let's set a breakpoint right here and set a breakpoint there. Switch back to InDesign, click on Create. It's asking me, do I want to switch into Flash debug perspective? Yes, I do. Inside the debug perspective, let's step through code. And you can see that we're parameterizing a text frame. Now let's expand the variables view, open that up a bit, and you can see if I go and change the text here to debug workflow, say, continue to execute, switch back into host application, zoom in a little tiny bit, and you can see that it's changed the text to what we set from inside of the Flash debugger. That's great, so let's close that document, get rid of this panel, close InDesign itself. In the background, the Flash debugger disconnects. Now this time, I'm going to change it slightly. Let's change the code just to starting from attach as. What I'm going to do here is actually launch InDesign and show you the attach workflow where the application is already started up. Now, you recall that we already debugged as, and so what that did was copy the extension to a particular folder in the user folder, CS5 Service Manager extensions. Now, when we go attach as here, what's going to happen? Attach as Adobe InDesign extension. InDesign has to be running to do them. It's asking me now, there's already a copy of this extension in this particular folder. What do I want to do? I can remove it, but I have to restart the application. In this case, I just want to randomize the extension ID so that InDesign can load another copy of the extension with some new random ID. And I'll switch back into InDesign, and you'll see the panel's open. Now that panel, we closed that before we started up. This is actually a whole new copy of the extension with a different random extension ID. I click on Create, and I'm at my breakpoint. I'll step through the code. This time I'll just continue to let it run. Switch back into host application, and it says starting from attach as. Now let's close that document. Let's go back to the Flash Builder environment, Flash debug perspective, stop debugging. And you recall the panel was open inside of InDesign. Now the panel's been closed if I was to switch back to InDesign. So it's unloaded that extension for me. That's really quite nice. And the reason that's really nice is, why don't we go and change the code? InDesign is still running in the background. And I'll change this to be something else. Recompile that extension, which takes just a second or two. Attach as Adobe InDesign extension again. Randomize ID again. Switch back into InDesign again. Click on Create, hit my breakpoint, continue to execute, back into InDesign, and indeed it's changed the text to something else. So that's really quite nice. Switch back into Flash Build Perspective, disconnect the debugger. Let's change the code to be something different. Let's make the extension geometry somewhat different, so it's not just the text that we're changing. And then attach as again. So this time we expect to see a somewhat wider panel when we create it. We can create, back at breakpoint, I'll skip that, back into InDesign, and indeed it has created a text frame that's wider than previously and shallower in the vertical direction. So that demonstrates both the debug as workflow, where you start the application in Flash Debugger at the same time and load your extension, and the new attach as workflow, which is really nice because it lets you change your code and have it reloaded by extension without you have it reloaded by the host application without you having to restart the application. And you can continue to change your code, recompile it, as long as you disconnect the debugger, recompile your extension, attach as again. You can do that arbitrarily many times. So that's a really, really nice addition to the debugging abilities of Creative Suite Extension Builder. Thank you very much.